I'll wait for a few seconds and I'll see if it's come up on your timeline.
Yep.
I'll just refresh that. There we go. There we go. And sound off. There we go.
Cool. 3 viewers. That's because everybody was expecting 4 o'clock. This having to change it to short notice. I would bet.
I put the notification up everyone I could think of. So.
Aye.
But you putting that up, it's no.
Aye.
The Scottish, it's no. Well, it's no happening, is it?
Aye.
Hi guys.
Facebook's starting to chat up nicely as well.
Let's see, we'll get the Facebook ones.
Right,
John McNee, Ruth Hanratty, Mags McLachlan, Tommy Gourley, Alex Russell, Justine Scott, Ian Mathewson, Harry McLean, Elizabeth Camper-Brown, Dave, oh dear, I jumped there. Oh dear, I missed. Bob Cooper, Maggie Brennan, Lorna McDonald, Jackie Cormack, Harry McLean.
That's enough.
What?
Enough. Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, Mick.
And hi everybody in YouTube as well. Nice to see you all. We're back after a couple of days of silence, hoping that the madness would cool down.
Yep.
And we've decided, as policy, to ignore the noisy minority.
Yes.
Simple as that. There is no point in getting our knickers in a twist about some trolls on Facebook or on Twitter or here. They're just a noisy minority, and we're going to leave it at that. Now, the first topic of the day will be the appointment of the new First Minister, Yusuf. And the fact that he's first Central Asian, we could call it, Central Asian First Minister of Scotland. And of course, he's the first Muslim First Minister of Scotland. And he seems to be surrounding himself with experienced ministers.
Yeah, no arguments there. Yeah.
No. I mean, his ministerial team for the front benches, if you like, is pretty good when you get right down to it. I know a lot of people have said it's a continuity thing, but you've got to remember in politics, people like stability. Business likes stability.
Yeah, I like
so the new Deputy First Minister is Shona Robertson. Michael Matheson moves to the Health Brief. Jenny Gilruth moves her role in transport and becomes Education Secretary. Mary McAllen has been promoted to the Net Zero and Just Transition Secretary. Neil Gray joins Cabinet for the first time as the Secretary for Wellbeing, Economy, Fair Work and Energy. Mary Guzen stays in post as Rural Affairs Secretary after Kate Forbes turned it down. Now, everybody tried to make this a battle between Kate and Humza. Turns out Shona Robertson got a letter from Kate saying she didn't want the job, she wanted a better work-life balance, which is something you and I spoke about before.
Well, in actual fact, Leslie Riddoch the other day there was posed exactly that question. You know, was this a fight by Kate Forbes and all the rest of it? And she said, no. She said, just look at when the Humza got the vote, and she immediately smiled. It was a warm smile, and then she gave him a cuddle and wished him all the best and all the rest of it, right? And that wasn't an act. That wasn't an act. That was her genuinely saying, well done, you know.
She was also generous for saying, thank Christ I lost this, because I threw my hat in the ring and I don't know how I was going to be able to keep up with the work. Anyway, Angus Robertson stays as Cabinet Secretary for Constitutional and External Affairs and Culture. Shirley Ann Somerville replaces Robson as a Social Justice Secretary. Angela Constance returns to the Cabinet as the new Justice Secretary. And of course, we have got the new Minister for Independence, who is Jamie Hepburn, who is the MSP for Coatbridge, Christ and Kilsyth, I think it is. Yeah. Or Cumbernauld, sorry, Cumbernauld and Kilsyth. So what heavyweights in his new cabinet?
It's rather interesting that they've gone for Jamie Hepburn as the Minister for Independence. That should say to everybody that Humza Yousaf has got it in his head that we're going ahead, we're going for this, and we actually have a Minister for Scottish Independence. Yeah, and it's not just a Minister for the Constitution or a Minister for tugging forelocks to Westminster. It's a Minister for Scottish Independence.
That's a really good idea, because it means if anybody's got questions, the Minister's the person to put it to.
Yes, that's right.
If even a member of the public, if you've got your doubts, you're not sure, then write to the bloody Minister.
And the important thing is, David, you answered this today, and it was a quotation from one of the ministers. How long is it going to take, David?
As long as it bloody well takes.
Correct. That's the answer that you would get off of even if a plumber came to your house to fix a tap or whatever, and you said, how long is this going to take? The plumber will invariably say to you, it'll take as long as it takes. Simple as that. Because I don't know what's involved yet in every part of it, right? And that is a pretty sensible answer by anybody. It'll take as long as it takes. So quit being impatient. It's just built. We're starting to put the band back together. And can I just say, anybody that's out of tune with that band, just ignore them. Just ignore them, right? End of the day, we've got an agenda. There is an agenda, and the agenda. Point number one is get the country away from Westminster as fast as possible.
And we'll get to some of the reasons why we need that a wee bit further in. But as I say, Humza is he was considered the continuity candidate. That's what the party knew the public needed. Whether people out there in the minorities are going to shout, no, we need something new. Business doesn't like change. He likes stability in politics. The trajectory is still in the right direction, and I think it's actually gaining momentum, because we will move on to subject 2, Angus Brendan McNeill and the Liaison Select Committee, where he pins Sunak to the wall. Will we play it?
Aye, go on, David.
There is no copyright. Let's make this clear to Facebook and anybody out there that's going to complain that we're infringing copyright. It's Parliament television. It belongs to the public, and it's in the public domain.
Yes. There is
no copyright infringement here.
So before YouTube makes a decision on whether this is a copyright issue, it is not. I pay for this. Other people pay for this in the UK.
We all pay for it through our taxes.
Yes.
It's in the public realm.
Yep.
So, how do I find the bloody thing? Angus Brendan McNeill asked Rishi Sunak about Scottish independence in a liaison committee. Right, I'll get it up, stop it now, and then we'll get it into the studio. So, here we go. Share. That should shove you and I to one side, David.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll play this for you folks, and then we'll discuss it. It's 11 minutes, but it's
International Trade Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just Prime Minister, before we get going, last week you gave quite a helpful answer in Prime Minister's questions to my colleague Joanna Cherry, who'd raised the issue of female judges from Afghanistan. There's a foundation based in my constituency, run by John and Lorna Nordgrove, in memory of their daughter Linda Nordgrove, who was tragically killed in Afghanistan as she was trying to be liberated by coalition forces. What they've done is they've set up a foundation to help young Afghan women, and they want to take about 20 female medical students to complete their studies across the 5 medical schools in Scotland. The medical schools in Scotland are happy this happens. Everybody involved is happy this happens, but there's a problem with the Home Office. I wonder, as Prime Minister, can you intervene to help this situation, to make sure these young ladies do complete their studies in medicine?
Well, I'm sure if you write me, and indeed the Home Secretary and the Immigration Minister will make sure that they're
case gets looked at in the normal way. But I think with all immigration cases, whenever I'm asked the same thing, that's the right process that should be followed. But I'm very happy to do that if you just make sure that they write in with the details and someone at the Home Office will have a look at the
Thank you.
the
There are letters already in, but I just want to highlight that to you personally. Prime Minister, we have a new First Minister in Scotland. I think he wanted a Section 30 for a referendum, and I think you've rebuffed that idea. Is that correct?
I haven't had the opportunity to talk to the new First Minister yet, so I look forward to doing that. And
in the Section 30 then?
So I look forward to having that conversation with him.
If you don't grant that Section 30, it would be that you don't want Scotland to have a referendum. And in that case, why would you prefer Scotland to go down the election route for independence rather than the referendum route?
As I said, I'm looking forward to having a dialogue with the new First Minister, and as I've always said, I think actually what people in Scotland want is to see their two governments working together to deliver for them. I was pleased that one of the last things I was able to do with the previous First Minister was announce 2 new free ports in Scotland, which again I think she welcomed rightly as a good example of that cooperation, delivering jobs and opportunities.
You said something quite important there. What does people in Scotland want? Now the world is watching, the democratic world, the good guys, and the non-democratic world, the bad guys. If the people in Scotland speak at the ballot box for independence or not, do you think it's incumbent on us all to respect that voice of the people at the ballot box?
I think in elections people vote on all sorts of different things, and I don't think it's appropriate to try and hijack a general election for
Surely you're free in a democracy to say anything you want in a manifesto. Are you trying to prescribe the manifesto that somebody would run on? I mean, the bad guys are watching.
I think that's what the previous First Minister was trying to do, and I think actually the people in Scotland will vote on the various issues that they think are important to them.
So as the rest of the world might recognise that result, you might have Iceland, you might have the Nordics, you might have the Baltics, for example, all recognising, as the people of Scotland would. Are you saying that you'd unilaterally deny independence, or attempt to unilaterally deny that the Scottish people had spoken for independence? A very bad situation to get yourself into.
I think we did have a referendum on it. And,
we did, but
we were told it was
a
once in a generation.
Are you denying that?
We were told it was a once in a generation referendum, and the people of Scotland had an opportunity to express their view.
We're getting
that. And they did. So I don't think anyone can deny that they were given that chance. And actually, we're also
language
on all the commitments that were made, all the commitments that were made to devolve greater power to Scotland, which is now the most powerful devolved assembly anywhere in the world. Those commitments were made to the people of Scotland. Those commitments have been delivered, and actually what they're also seeing now is strong cooperation where we can to deliver for them, whether it's on the cost of living, whether it's on things like free ports, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
I'm glad to see that you don't rule out recognising the ballot box. And your predecessor, but one, did call the 2019 general election a once in a lifetime general election, and I hope you're not going to take him at his word on that. When it comes to Northern Ireland, you're a fan of the single market now. When did you take the road to Damascus on that very issue?
No, I think what I was referring to, and actually it's I'd say...
It was nicely put by Angus. Your predecessor said the 2019 election was a once-in-a-generation election, and I really hope you don't stick to that. Otherwise, we'd never have another general election, ever.
But as Angus said, he was very careful to not rule out that there was power in the ballot box, because it would be going up against the Supreme Court then.
Yeah.
As we know, Section 7981 of the Supreme Court decision was that there is power at the ballot box, and that's why a Scottish plebiscite election is what we've been talking about. But to see Angus pin him to the ground on it, and to see him squirm like a feckin' snake, which he is, of course, was excellent stuff.
He's a lightweight. Sunak is a lightweight, and Angus knows his way around about the blocks and the streets and all the rest of it well enough. And what he did there was he did a nice forensic job of boxing them in. Yeah, in terms of, right, okay, you say this, right, well, that means that, that you do think there's power in the ballot box, so.
But it was the way you put it. We've got the good guys out there who are Democrats, and the bad guys who are no. Which one are you, you snake? Was basically what he was saying to him. And of course, he had him on the fishing line, then, didn't he? He got him on the hook.
Yeah.
He's taking the worm. So as soon as he boxed himself into a corner, I think this people of Scotland, they don't give a fuck what he thinks the people of Scotland want. The ballot box has been quite clear what the people of Scotland want 5 times in a row.
I have to say, that, see the inquiries that they have, they're much, much better than Prime Minister's questions. Because at Prime Minister's question, all he does, he gets question, comes across, and he goes, but, and he answers with anything. Oh, yeah, Rangers were playing Celtic last year.
He just did that, and all. He had a vote in 2014, but give you 2, 3, 4, suck it up, buttercups like it.
Yeah.
You know, but he couldn't deny the power of the ballot box. And when that question was put to him, bad guys are watching, good guys are watching. Which side of the fence are you on, Spanner? Had him right on the hook. No, it was a well-crafted piece. But you're right, the select committees are far more interesting than watching debates in the chamber at Westminster.
Yeah.
So they are. I have to say, I'd much rather watch a debate in the chamber in Holyrood than what with the select committees in Holyrood.
Yeah, yeah.
The select committees in Holyrood seem to be pretty dry affairs.
Yeah.
You know, whereas in Westminster there seem to be more sparks in the select committees.
Yeah.
Whereas in Holyrood you tend to get more sparks in the chamber when it's come up with debates. You know. But there's far more grown-up politics goes on in Edinburgh than what there is in London. But people have to remember, and whom's I fell for this one again today. You know, when the idiot woman for the Tory party got up on third question was asking about the economy. Whom's like the rest of them, tried to take responsibility for the economy. All he had to say was, "Hoi, Tory witch. We've only got one economic lever. You've got the rest of them. Sit down, shut up, you spanner. If there's something wrong with the economy, it's your fault, no yours."
Yeah.
You know, I wish they would get to the point where they're telling the people of Scotland the bloody truth on these issues. We don't control our economy. We have one economic lever, and that is income tax. And in the middle of a cost of living crisis, there's bugger all you can do with income tax, except for maybe spread the burden a wee bit.
Perhaps this is a conversation that we need to be having with a few of the cabinet members, because I remember that Angela Constance, who was dealing with the drugs issue, she was questioned time after time after time. She went, "Oh yeah, we're really, really sorry," and all the rest of it, rather than just saying, "Look, it's reserved to Westminster, you bums," you know, and that's it. You know, we will do what we can,
but it's a
reserved matter.
I wish they would be more honest with the people of Scotland. The people of Scotland, because of the bad quality of the media we have here, actually believe that Scotland is run by a Holyrood, when actually there's only 4 or 5 competencies along there. You've got health, education, the environment and infrastructure,
transport. Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
5 or 6 competencies is all they've got. All right, they're big white portfolios. But there's only 4 or 5 of them, 5 or 6 of them lie in Holyrood. And it's time our politicians started being honest with people. Because when we talk about needing these powers to deal with these things, people have to understand that they don't have these powers at the moment.
Yep.
And you've got the cuckoos in the nest, as I call them, the red and blue Tories and yellow Tories all shouting, "You're not using the full powers of devolution." There is no bloody full power in devolution. That comes with independence.
Okay. Well, therefore, this is an area of weakness that we have discovered. Not discovered, but we're pointing out. And I think it needs putting through to the new Minister for Independence, because that Minister for Independence will need that kind of information. And
that's the sort of thing but see, that's a problem with our media. And then you've got our politicians playing along with them.
Yeah, but the politicians could answer, could say, "It's a very good question you've asked there. I would like to point out that is a reserved issue to Westminster, and we will do everything that we possibly can to try and mitigate the situation. However, it is a reserved issue. We would like it to be unreserved, and the only way to do that is become an independent country."
I mean, who's all in the economy? You've got to point out that actually GDP is higher here in Scotland, the production is higher here in Scotland, and things like that to this Muppet woman. But what he should have said was, "Don't look at us, doll. It's reserved."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Time for a bit of straight speaking, and let's utilise the new team that's being put together. All right. We know it's a continuity team and it builds on the strengths of the previous administration, but we still need to actually utilise that team. Lorraine,
we hope you're so today, Lorraine, but as far as I know the First Minister used to watch the end truck Davies vlogs. Because one of my viewers worked in the First Minister's office. He used to put them on for a laugh.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right. So the next thing that Angus was getting into with Rishi Sunak was okay, just the Northern Ireland thing. That was all. So
there's a couple of important things on the Northern Ireland thing. So Angus is pointing out why couldn't Scotland get that? That's what we voted for. And B, the other thing that needs to be pointed out with the Northern Ireland protocols and the arrangement between Europe, Northern Ireland, and the RUK, as they're calling it at the moment. When we become independent, we will trade with Westminster along their lines.
Yes, that's right.
So the answer to the trade problem is there in the Northern Ireland protocols, the Windsor protocol, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Windsor framework, whatever you want to call it. It's there.
The unionists used to put that up as an objection all the time, was we can't have Scotland being in the EU or EFTA or whatever, and there being a border to England and all the rest of it, right? Well, there you go, guys and lasses, right? Pamela Nash, etc., etc. It's been answered. That has been answered clearly.
And if we find wee bottlenecks for trade, because that's what it really affects, then we'll do what they did. We'll put in green and red lanes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
The answers are there in the Windsor framework or the NI protocol, whatever you want to bloody well call it.
Yeah.
So the Northern Ireland thing was interesting when Angus got into him with Bratton. He came up with, that Northern Ireland's a special case. No, it's not. It's in the Union.
I love the phrase he used. The road to Damascus moment.
Angus is quite a clever fellow when he got back on again for a yak.
Yes, he is.
Because I've watched Angus in select committees for years. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
But
and he's got
that's what
also he's got
a
cracking sense of humour, the guy, honestly. Yeah.
A wonderful sense of humour.
Right, so I would say we've covered that bit of it. Okay, we can come back to it if we discover it. So, what's the next thing that we want to be discussing, David? You get the list there.
UK to join the CPTPP. If you don't know what that is, it's a Trans-Pacific trading bloc.
Yeah.
And according to, there's a study up on my timeline if anybody's interested in it, which says it will net over the next 5 years to 10 years 1.8 billion. So basically, by the time you take away the transport costs to get the goods there, you're making bugger all.
Yeah.
And a 0.01% increase to GDP through joining the CTPP or whatever the hell it is, the CPTPP.
These particular agreements have got a really, really bad clause in it for us. And it means that if anybody feels that they haven't had a fair crack at the whip, they can actually take the UK government to court and gain money off them for loss of profit, right? And that
it's not TTIP, Dean. It's CP.
But it still contained the same clauses, though.
It's the very same thing, except for the Pacific. TTIP was for transatlantic.
I know, yes, yeah, but that's further south, yeah. It's still in all. It still contains that. If somebody feels they haven't had a fair crack at the whip, it gives them every opportunity to actually take the UK to court for loss of profit. There'll be some corporations that will do that quite gladly.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, our 27 Philadelphia lawyers are sitting about doing nothing. Go and take on the UK on that one that we lost.
That's a good point, Ginny. There is no way that exports to Malaysia or Brunei are going to make any difference. And the UK is about to sign a trade deal with the United Arab Emirates, made up of 5 different Arab countries, and it just shows you how they're throwing human rights and workers' rights and things like that out the window to actually get in bed with these people. But when we'll get a wee bit more of that as we go further into the programme. As I say, there's a study on my timeline in one of the newspapers on the CPTPP and the UK's intention to join it. It's almost a done deal now, but it's not going to make any difference. It will be hailed as a Brexit bonus, folks. There is no bonus in it. 0.01% increase to GDP.
What was the phrase I heard? It's like spending 500 quid to get 2 quid.
Aye.
I
think Angus pointed that out in that bloody clip. If I'd have left it plain. It's like spending about 800 quid to get 2 quid back, or 8 quid back. You know, it's just throwing good money after bad money. You know, absolutely mental. So, it's not going to make that much difference whatsoever.
And our sister Jen says, aye, but the new free ports.
Aye, free ports. I don't know how many times you and I have had to explain that free ports don't work. As the days move industrial activity from one area to another area where they don't pay bloody taxes.
Yeah.
And it's also how smuggling gets done.
Yeah, and also, you're looking at the bad side of that. You know, if you are maybe working in a part of an area where a free port is adjacent to it, right? And you're not in that free port, you're losing.
Aye.
And
but also, as we know, the reason why free ports failed was it just brought in all the crooks and smugglers and tax dodgers. And as I say, it didn't create work, folks. They never have created work. They just moved work for the present industrial areas into these free ports. Simple as that. They haven't worked, they've never worked. As I say, but what we do see with free ports is because there's no checks and things like that, you get drugs coming in, you get armaments coming in, you got all sorts coming in. So free ports don't work, and for these BAM ports doing that road, not to know that all the free ports we had here had failed.
No, but the thing is, David, let's get it right. They know what the free ports mean, and they know why they're pushing it, right? And they know what the net effect is going to be, because we know who their pals are.
Aye. I mean, if you look at the 2 guys that have been appointed to run the Teaport, the Teesside free port, they're bloody crooks.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And I've no fear of saying that. No fear of the 2 of them suing me. Because let's face it, it's in the public domain.
You know.
Mental.
Dare I say it again? I'm going to shout at this time. Sunak's a criminal, right?
There's always that. We know he's a criminal.
Yeah. So there you go.
Insider trading is rife, and that's why they are quite happy for him to give up his false ministerial salary plus some own tax each year to be able to continue with the insider trading. Fine example, the hedge fund that he founded, $1 billion worth of investment in Moderna, government contract to Moderna.
Yeah.
Who profits? Insider trader, Sunak. Same in all with Liz Truss's wheeze. That was insider trading and all. You know, all the city traders get their heads up. Kwasi Kwarteng was back in the city right after that budget, celebrating with his pals who'd made a killing betting against the economy, and they engineered the crash so that their pals could make money. Simple as that.
Then talk about all the Russian oligarchs that had a few weeks of prior notice that something was going to happen, so they could move other money, other funds.
3 weeks ahead up. Yeah. And the press team, and the government release. We're going to sanction you in 3 weeks' time. Here's a list of who we're going to sanction in 3 weeks' time. Get your money and get any fake.
The difficulty is, guys, that to prove insider trading is really difficult. But it is, you know, you can imagine anybody that's got the kind of information that the Prime Minister got or the Chancellor of the Exchequer has got. It makes them party to stuff that's coming down the line, and if anybody bets on it using their information, they can make an immense amount of money on it. You know, so, and that's it. But however, Rishi Sunak, he did insider trading at the time that the Royal Bank of Scotland was going down.
That's right, aye. Yeah. Is Aberdeen going to be one of these free ports? Because I fancy being a gun-toting drug baron. I will say right.
Dibs me in.
According to Lorraine, Westminster is the biggest free port in the UK. It certainly is. There's a lot on the gravy train, that's for sure. Snocks and the trouters. Sorry, trouts and the troppers. Mental.
Right, anyway.
Tommy Gourley on Facebook is charging £1,800 an hour for advice on the Kama Sutra. Which, of course, brings us on to the idiots in the Tory party. I think it was one Labour MP who were being scammed by donkeys. That was a cracker.
Well, I got my badge today, plus my gold star off of Led by Donkeys, because the comments I put up and the posts that I put up of theirs. So, but some of the stuff they put up is very well done.
Well, actually, that's quite an interesting one. Sunak's wife is also profiteering from childminders, as she owns a company where government funding has just went. That's right. She owns the IT company that's going to distribute that funding for the new improved child early learning who was doing that. The ones that they tell us to get on board with, even though we already had it.
It's like a scene from a film about the Chicago and New York in the 1920s. Yeah, where you had Al Capone was the mayor of New York, and you think to yourself, well, how does that work? You guys are crook, you know. And here we've got Sunak and his wife and his father-in-law, you know, and it looks like that's Rolls Royce. They're going to lose a load of work from the UK over to India.
And Mark Roundtree on Facebook says he was a customs officer when the Tories last tried Freeport, and they were a disaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Freeports are a bloody disaster. Be like the ports and Peaky Blinders, exactly like that.
Never seen it. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Aye.
They know what you mean. But so
what are you saying, Chris? You forgot about Where's Wally? What's that about?
Now, we're going to move on to what we're calling the Do Nothing government at Westminster. Now, they're doing all sorts, making lots of noises to say they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing the next thing. They're not doing anything.
That's right.
And thanks very much, Lenny. And of course, you know, I mean, the new and I think the culture wars are coming to an end. They've run out of people to blame. Can't you blame the coloured people anymore? In fact, we're now at the point where we're blaming homelessness and poverty, which was created by the Tories and Labour and successive Westminster governments. Because let's face it, Westminster's been a failed establishment for as long as you and I have been alive.
And they're having to take all these MOD properties and fill them with refugees because they can't get them processed. For some reason, the pencils have all run out.
Listen, I'm going to read this one out. It would be a bit ironic if a Pakistani and an Indian negotiated a breakup with the UK. I think we'd like to call it partition.
Yes.
Because that's what they did in India. They called it partition.
And
that's what they did in Ireland, call it partition.
Watch out, because if you say anything that's against India or Pakistan, they'll come and they'll take your forefinger off. we took their thumbs off to stop them from blooming weaving, right? Well, they're going to take your main finger off, your forefinger off, because it'll stop you from commenting on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever. There you go.
I'm sure Peter will learn to type with another finger, David.
Yeah, with that one. Oh dear. You see the stuff that's happening at the moment. It's just unbelievable. However, that will lead us on to something that's perhaps even bigger than any of this stuff that we've discussed, right?
And there's media blackout on it.
Sorry?
And there's media blackout on it.
Yes, there is. And that's maybe more worrying than anything.
So this is a big subject, David, and it'll take us 20 minutes to cover, so we may as well get into it.
Okay.
Right, and that is Saudi and Iran moving to the Shanghai, it's called SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's a trading pact made up with the BRICS countries, and Saudi Arabia and Iran are now in the process of joining. And Brazil, of course, is. I'll let you tell what Brazil declared this morning.
Yeah, Brazil's biggest banking corporation have agreed with China to pay or to take payment for any oil that changes hands in the yuan. So that means the petrodollar is now officially under embattlement. In actual fact, I would say that if this continues at the pace that it's been happening over the past couple of weeks, I see the American petrodollar falling, collapsing within the next month.
Aye, because Saudi's already agreed to accept the petro yuan.
Yeah.
And they're going to take OPEC and Iran with them.
Yeah.
And that means that most of the world's oil production will be bought, and not the petrodollar, but in the petro yuan.
Now, the consequences of this are that you've got the American military industrial complex. The only thing that they can possibly do is rape and pillage. They are going to attack somebody. It's the only thing they can do. If the petrodollar goes down the Swanee, then that means that America
it's not the only thing they could. They could, of course, preempt this by introducing central bank digital currencies and watch your fiat currencies disappear altogether.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, if the yuan is made into a gold-backed currency,
and we know that Russia, China, and the Arab countries have all been buying up gold.
That's right. That means that all the other fiat currencies will go, and that means all the central banks will go, and it's just a matter of timing as to whether a central bank digital currency will be introduced.
And Ginger Giraffes, who's in America, she's saying this is going to hurt her.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's not just going to affect America, it's going to affect the whole of the West, who has used basically the petrodollar as the backing for their currency, and it's going to be the petrodollar as the reserve currency, basically. Because what happens here is the yuan is going to replace the American dollar or the petrodollar as the reserve currency, if you like, the top reserve currency. There are 7 reserve currencies, the basket of reserve currencies. But as I say, it will push the United States down. And let's face it, we have a population of 1.6 billion in China, a population of nearly 1 billion in India. In fact, I think there's 400 or 500 million in Pakistan. Brazil's a huge place. Actually, America's just been dwarfed by these places.
I know that.
Absolutely dwarfed.
One of the oldest phrases in business, and I'll tell you, right, is when America catches a cold, the rest of the world catches a flu. And that's a fact. That is a fact, because the Americans will fight to preserve their situation.
That's just asking, who will we declare war on to stop this? I'm afraid it can't be stopped. The dynamics of the planet are changing.
Yeah.
China has become the industrial heartland of the world.
Yeah.
And the greater populations in India, Pakistan, Brazil, and the fair-sized population in Russia, when you put that together, and the countries that are now joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is, as I say, the trading pact, they're going to start dealing in yuan. And there's nothing we can do about it, Ginger. It just so happens that the time has come when world power is shifting.
Yeah.
And we're going to be here to see it. As I say, there's only one way they're going to be able to do this, and that is to actually scrap the current monetary system, and we know where we're going with that. We're going to central bank digital currencies, which we all know isn't going to be a good thing. But it's a serious situation that's coming to a head. Here we've got Saudi Arabia and now Brazil saying they're going to buy oil and the petro yuan as opposed to the petro dollar. We're seeing power shift, rightly so, to the larger populations.
Yeah.
Thank you, my lord.
Please.
Certainly, come on,
And if you want my prediction in terms of who's going to be next to join this group, I would say it's highly likely that Venezuela may join, because Venezuela have been very, very much under the shadow of America. Their politics and everything have been pushed along because they've got the largest oil stocks in the world. And America see that it is important to keep a hold of them. Well, if they join that group with China and all the rest of it, it's like America's effectively gone financially.
Ginger, you're right. The West won't go down without a fight, but I'm sorry, power's shifting.
That's right. Yeah.
There's nothing we can do to stop this. The minute these countries decide they're not going to use our currencies as reserve currencies anymore, there's nothing we can do about it.
And here's another heads up, guys. If we don't want to be involved in another war, we don't want to see our lads and lasses killed because somebody's scared they're going to lose the bank balance. We need to become an independent country.
Very rapidly. Now, Dean Halliday on Facebook is making a good point. Not a peep about this in the mainstream media. As you know, folks, I did a short on this a couple of weeks ago when China brokered the peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and there was not a peep in the international press about this. That's because they don't want you to know power is shifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want the population to know that the power is shifting from the west to the east. And as I say, it's only fair. There's a bigger populations there. They have greater needs. What we're seeing is an absolute reversal. America, the UK, and eventually Europe are becoming third world countries as we exhaust our resources and things like that.
Yeah.
And the third world countries come to the fore.
Mm-hmm. And
as they bring their populations up out of poverty through decent education, decent health services, and of course the fact that they've cornered international trade.
Yeah.
We buy more from China, Pakistan, and India than probably America and altogether, actually.
I used to do a lot of work for BT as a contractor, and I used to cover the West Coast, the West Highlands, and it was a great part of my life. Really brilliant, right? However, the issue with a laptop, and that's got the whole BT database on it, so you can quickly look up stuff, right? And the people that dealt with all those laptops were based in Bangalore, right? And we used to call BT Bangalore Telecom because it was run from India, you know. So
it brings me on to another subject. Somebody asked why it is that Royal Mail's talk about a voluntary bankruptcy, because they're trying to sell it and nobody wants to buy it, and they're not making money out of it. Yeah. So the people who have made money out of it right now are going to dump it, and the taxpayer will have to pick up and start again.
Yeah, it's just it used to cost 40 quid to get a winding up order, right? I don't know what it costs now, but I can't imagine it costs that much more nowadays, right? And if somebody wants their company wound up, they just go and buy a load of gear for somebody that they know that's going to go for a winding up order, and then that's it, it's done. You don't have any bother with trying to wind up the company yourself, right?
But Royal Mail was another one of these public services which should never have been put into private hands in the first place.
Well, Royal Mail was. I was in post office telecommunications when I left school, right? And the postal side was just another part of that, right?
Aye.
In actual fact, and the telephone exchange that I worked out of, the guy that came to do the lifts was actually the lifts that went up and down the building. He was employed by the postal side.
Aye.
Yeah, so
Alex was saying, yeah, the peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia was just the beginning. Aye, and what we've got to realise, folks, is China have made vast inroads into Africa, the African nations as well. And they're not charging the exorbitant rates that the World Bank or, say, the UK or the US are on debt to these places.
now you want to hear the really spooky bit. The really spooky bit is that Bloomberg, just before I came on the broadcast here, I actually saw they put up the little ticker tape of little captions that they do, right? And it says that China, it just says China are contacting CEOs everywhere to try and convince them there's not going to be a war.
I can't see the Americans letting this slide.
To me, when something like that happens, that means there's going to be a war.
It's it's 9:44 p.m. here in the Philippines, and it's 30 degrees up here. Very good. US panicking over China and Latin America too. Yes, Dodger, they are. China are reaching out, and China's got more money.
Yeah.
And America will try the might is right thing, but China's bigger. I'm sorry.
It could well be that there could be a backdoor deal between China and Russia. Russia at the moment need weapons. We know that they've used up basically all of the missiles that they've got and all the rest of it, right? China have got those, right? And we know that China want to actually produce a gold-backed currency, and we know that Russia were trying to produce a gold-backed currency. So Russia have already got a large stock of gold that they might let go to China for giving them more weapons. Just a thought, just me sort of like smelling what's in the wind. And
a couple of other things that are in the wind. While China was in Russia last week, the Chinese president was in Russia last week with a meeting with in fact, it might even be earlier this week. They're trying to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. And they're doing a 14-point route map to peace.
Mm-hmm.
So China's being seen as the big boys in the room here.
Yeah, they are.
The adults,
yeah. But it does seem that there is an agenda there, and it's rather clear, and it's boxing America out all the way around, right? And because the UK effectively is one of America's vassal states, then that is also going to include us.
Of course, Russia's been buying weapons from China through third parties, that's true. China intends to own most of the African coastal infrastructure sooner rather than later. To be honest, they're fighting for the upgrade of that infrastructure because what they're doing is they're reopening what they used to call the old Silk trade routes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're also building they're also building railways right through Africa, up round through Russia, across the Gobi Desert and into China.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you look at the geopolitical situation, if the petrodollar does go bump, then straight away you've got other vassal states like Israel. Israel receive over $100 billion in weapons aid every single year. And if the petrodollar is gone, then that means Israel no longer gets that. And that changes the balance of power in the Middle East. Yeah.
Aye, that's true. But the balance of power is shifted.
I know that.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of how certain powers here in the West react.
Yeah.
You
know, guys, I've got to say, the batteries in my crystal ball are gone, and the wee LED light in it's gone as well. And it's like we're having to find this out just bit by bit, just struggling to, doing researches here and there and all the rest of it. You lot should be doing the same. Yeah.
You might be doing researches. I'm putting what yours into this.
Oh, did I touch a nerve?
You know, I'll be sitting reading this pish as it comes through on the news wires, because this is the biggest story on the planet right now, and we're hearing nothing about it. In fact, if I hadn't done my wee programme the other week, there most people here wouldn't know nothing about it.
What he doesn't tell you, he's got a wee ticker tape machine in the back of his head.
Don't know, John. I don't know whether World War III is on the horizon. There might be a few skirmishes here and there.
World War III is bad for business. I think you've got to keep that in mind. And I think most of the actors in all of this will realise that World War III is bad for business. However, taking us right up to that point is good for business because, well, it lets certain people get their way.
But the real reason why I don't think it'll go that far is because I'm looking at the ticker tapes out there on the world press, David, as you know, and they're talking about a new Cold War.
Yeah.
You know, with these states that are joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you know, because it's not just a trading pact, it's also security agreement.
Yeah.
You know, so this, folks, is the biggest story on the planet which you are not being told about. Now, David and I have reported on it a couple of times, and I've reported on the Iran and Saudi Arabia peace treaty a day or so after it was signed, because that took that long to filter through.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we've got to be aware that the longer they can keep you lot scared.
But that's what I mean, bro, about skirmishes. What's going on in the South China Sea with Taiwan now? I don't see that escalating beyond the South China Sea.
Yeah.
You know,
and you look at Britain, right? Royal Navy is in a bit of a state. That's the same.
20 boats. 20 bloody boats, and they're even not working.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, about 28 boats.
Yeah. The aircraft carrier, the Prince of Wales, was the one where the prop shaft broke, and it's going to cost something like 20 million or something like that just to repair that. You know, but what dry dock are you going to pull that into? You know.
But it's a good point for Mr. V. The fear of war allows the political changes that would otherwise be impossible. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's as I say, and if the petrodollar is going to collapse, you're going to see us move quicker to CBDCs.
Yeah.
Something like that. And as we've reported on here, the Bank of International Settlement, which is the central bank of central banks, it wants these things in place by January 1st, 2025 anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but it might have to accelerate because of the situation with all these big countries moving to buying their fuel in the yuan.
That's right.
Which will see the collapse of the petrodollar.
But
what do they know about China? And this seems to be the truth of it. China hasn't done what it's done across Africa or the Arab nations by force. It's done it by cooperation, goodwill, and building infrastructure.
Yeah, and also the fact is they've got a big blooming stack of money behind them that they can go about and go, yeah, right, we'll give you a couple of billion for that, you know.
Aye, and we'll keep our interest rates down to something reasonable at 1 or 2%, unlike the West, who slaughter the poor African nations and Central Arabic nations with huge interest rates on debt.
The only thing I've seen on the feed that's bad for China is their construction, their home construction market is getting wobbly.
Aye, John said the destroyers will get the wrong engines under the aircraft carriers,
That's right.
and that one's come back with, aye, but the ferries, John.
The wrong engines are quite interesting. Anytime they get into warmer water, warmer climates, the engines overheat and stop working. Yeah, so.
Oh, China doesn't need to. As I say, China have been doing it with goodwill.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought you could broker a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia? Wow. There have been loggerheads for as long as I've been, longer than I've been alive, actually.
Yeah.
Since the partition of the Persian Empire.
Yeah.
You know.
Be rather interesting if China went into Afghanistan. See what they would do there. Just out of sheer bloody interest, come out with the Mujahideen all with a smile on their face and saying, we're going to send all the lasses back to school.
Actually, Stephen Kelly on Facebook makes a good point. The UK has only got 220 tanks, and they just need 12 of them at Ukraine. And John's got an angry face on saying, Fiona, why bring up the ferries? But folks, to get back to a wee bit of the serious stuff here, there's actually a big shift in the world, and our media are not telling you about it. David and I will try and keep abreast of it and give you updates as time goes on. But the Ukraine is using Ukrainian kids as human shields, according to Amnesty International, isn't it? Wow. Using their own children as human shields.
No, I'm sure that's the other way around. Isn't it Russia that have taken a few of the Ukrainian children?
Aye, but they were actually kidnapped, if you like. They were taken out of Russia.
Yeah.
Taken out of Ukraine. That's illegal. That's child trafficking. But as I say, the big story on the planet right now, folks, get tuned in. You know how to use your search engine. Get tuned in. It's what's going on with Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a trading bloc as well as a security bloc.
Yeah.
So what you're finding is that we're seeing lines drawn again, aren't we? A bit like the Cold War. But that's it seems to be halfway across the planet. This line's getting drawn.
Yeah, the place to get your information from is
not thanks to you.
Yeah, not necessarily Facebook or anywhere else like that. The best place to get the information from is where other businesses get their information from. You're talking CNBC, Bloomberg, and all the business feeds that you can post. Yeah, that's right.
The FT. That's the places. But when you're using your search engine, folks, use your search engine.
Yeah.
Your search engine is your friend at this point in time.
Yeah.
And if you've got a VPN, set yourself as being in an Asian country or something like that. Or maybe America or something like that. But we're saying that America's got the same media blackout that we've got here.
Right.
I mean, I'm getting most of this news out of the Arab states at the moment, but even Al Jazeera here in the UK is getting news blackout on it.
Yeah.
But if you go into Al Jazeera elsewhere, you'll get this news. So it's a matter of using your VPN. Aye, France 24 is a good source of news. I don't know whether they've been covering this one or no. I haven't had a look at France 24. So, as I say, this is a big story on the planet, folks, and you're getting the wool pulling over your eyes.
Yeah, it's very, very serious. Do I think it's going to end up World War III? I think that depends on America.
Aye, and remember, folks, back here in Scotland, it's time to get the band back together.
Yes.
Partisan politics in your pocket unless there's an election on. Eyes on the prize. Get out there and win hearts and minds. And as I say, the fact that we now have a Minister for Independence will help.
Yeah.
It will help.
We need to be out of the United Kingdom last Wednesday at 3:00, right?
Oh, I don't doubt that Britain are democracy deniers. I don't doubt that these sort of things go on in war. Of course they do. I mean, I've got to laugh at, about the outrage about Russia bombing cities and that in Ukraine. What did we do in Iraq?
Yeah, that's right.
We fucking flattened Baghdad. We killed oh, God knows how many. I think it was 30,000 in one night.
Yeah.
Wow. So, eyes on the prize, folks. We're getting to the end of this session. Eyes on the prize. Partisan politics in your pockets, and get out there and win hearts and minds. Remember, what people want to know is how you going. They don't want to know about the infighting in the yes movement. They want to know how we are going to do things like borders, currency, international trade, defence. Now, as I say, I've put a video answering all these questions. It's out there, it's called How You Gonies. So learn your How You Gonies, stop the silliness, and it is a continuity cabinet. But you've got to remember, folks, and this is a very important point that the Tories and Labour don't seem to get. The SNP were voted into administration in 2021 on a manifesto. The new leader here in Scotland has no right to diverge for that unless he has an election. So it is a continuity cabinet, it is a continuity government, because that's what the people voted for in 2021. And that manifesto must be carried out. The hardest part of that manifesto, the independence part, that's up to us. So it's time to chuck the nonsense, chuck the negativity, and get behind the new leader. And if anybody thinks that we need to replace the SNP, then we can put it to bed for 30 to 50. In fact, the guy who did it, the guy who made the same point that I've been making, is a guy called James Kelly who runs Scott Go Pop, and he's a member of the Alpha Party. And he penned a letter saying he didn't join the Alpha Party to destroy the SNP. He joined it to augment support for the SNP and independence. So, but what he said was, if the Alpha Party's idea, and this was this guy who was in the Alpha Party, the Alpha Party's idea is to bring down or destroy the SNP, then we can put independence to bed for the next couple of generations.
Yeah, just start considering what the UK government are going to do to us, which would be quite bad, right? Very bad. And just accept it. Or we can all get behind the SNP.
And remember, Angus Brendan McNeil just pinned Sunak to the wall in this one.
Yeah.
That was the point of putting that video up. So, as we say, eyes on the prize. Now, we've run out a wee bit, David, but that's all right. It's only a couple of minutes. But listen, thanks for everybody that's made a donation today.
Yes.
It is generous. Times are hard.
Yep. Very
difficult. So we're very thankful for anything that he's sent to us in order to put it out to the food banks. David and I will get the March's month's money in. We're going to dispose of that shortly. We'll tell you where it goes when it goes. All right. Yeah. Of course, David and I did lay out some of our own money before the money started coming in for Google. So it comes via YouTube. It comes to YouTube via Google. But obviously we're supposed to take that back. Well, we'll see. We obviously Nene is going to afford to just throw away a couple of £100 at this point in time. But as I say, what's coming in, what's left after David and I have took the wee bit back that we might take back, which then it'll go out the door as it comes in. Now we're getting it a month in arrears, so anything you raise this month, we'll get it at the end of April. So that's how it's working. Okay. Now, thanks very much, as I say. Very kind of you for your donations. Times are very tough. As I say, we've covered the eyes on the prize bit. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share around if you like what we do. All right. But also, if you're on Facebook and you're going to share this, give me a couple of minutes, because as you know, I've said this repeatedly, Meta are restricting me. If you're sharing it before the video is finished, or the broadcast is finished, what happens is it comes up as content not available. Thanks, Eddie. If you're sharing, but if you give me a couple of minutes once we finish the program, I'll change it to public, then you can share away and the content will be available. Okay. So, as I say, say I think we've covered almost everything except for the march on Saturday in Edinburgh. 1300 hours, top of the Royal Mile, down to the Parliament. Now, folks, we're putting the band back together. Let's get you out there on the streets. And the other thing is, next month, 22nd of April, I think there's still 12 or 13 tickets left for the Indie 2 Cafes fundraiser at the New House Hotel. The entertainment will be Pete Scally. 5 free raffle tickets, I think it was. There's no buffet this time because we didn't think the buffet was value for money at the last place. But there is a restaurant on site if you're hungry. So I'll be in Edinburgh on Saturday. I don't think David
family stuff, right? So anyway, chaps, thank you very much for joining us, and that just leaves me to say one thing or two things. Bye, Davey, and bye, guys.
Bye, Davey. Right, bye, folks. We'll see you Monday, 2 o'clock.